Good morning, Bishop and members of the annual conference.
Good morning.
Want to say thank you to Dan Schwerin and the Episcopacy Committee report because he summarized very well the goals actually of the bishop and cabinet, and appreciate his work in that regard. Now, some of you that are pastors, you probably had the question posed to you before. Now, what is it exactly that you do? Some people wonder at times, how do you spend the rest of your week? You know, is it only Sundays that you offer ministry and worship? And I don't know how you've responded to that question before. Sometimes I'm very flip and say, well, I only get paid for 1 day a week, so that's all I'm going to work. But of course, that's not the case. There is a complexity of what we do together as clergy and in lay leadership. Likewise, it's hard to describe the role of a superintendent. So I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes to be able to describe that role a little bit more. Mark Gilbert was a pastor with me at Cargill a number of years ago, and he came up with a phrase that the role of an associate is the mortar between the bricks. Just put any place that's needed to help a structure stay steady. In some ways, that could describe the role of the district superintendent. Actually, we are the extension of the general superintendency, which is the office of the bishop. So we operate and work on the bishop's behalf in our ministry to fulfill God's great commission to make disciples of Jesus Christ for all the world. We are the mortar, the bricks. Another way to describe that is our focus is to stay on that mission of making disciples of Jesus Christ. We have to continually remind ourselves that it's not about us as individuals, it's about the mission. It's about the mission of the church. It's about the mission of supporting the general superintendency of Bishop Jung. There was a wise individual that we used to collaborate from time to time in our own role as superintendents, and we figured out that the first thing that happened when we became superintendents was that we would lose all our friends. We would lose our friends because we needed to stay most true to the mission. I'm glad that this colleague is now going to lead the General Conference delegation, Dan Schwerin. I'm glad he received a few friends back. Isn't that good? The superintendency, as that mortar, as that representation, not only of the office of the bishop, but of our representative of Christ to make disciples for all the world, is about the ordering of the life of the church to enable faithful worship and energetic evangelism. We're also to interpret the itinerancy. We're integral to itinerancy. Now, the district superintendent oversees the total ministry of the clergy, including extension ministry and any ministry beyond the local church. Actually, I forgot to ask you, please turn your disciplines to paragraph 417 to 421, and you'll be able to find some of this information. The district superintendent is also to serve as the chief mission strategist for the districts and living out the values of the church. Some of these values include inclusiveness. Inclusiveness is to be our role in our districts. All means all. We are to give attention to clergy and churches, all clergy, all congregations, all laity, all are our people. As Bishop Jung refers to all of us, we are all the church of Jesus Christ, the United Methodist Church in Wisconsin. So how can we care for all people? We're to know churches and to know clergy. In fact, years ago when Bishop Rader invited me to be on cabinet for the first time, she said that was the primary functions that we have as district superintendents. Get to know the clergy, get to know the churches. Why? Partly out of care, concern, Partly that we need to know that our personnel work and helping to make appointments to local congregations is such a significant piece of our job. How can we do that without knowing the churches and knowing the people? So we're also to help on the District Committee on Ministry, working in partnership with the Board of Ordained Ministry to recruit and examine candidates for ministry. We're to work toward the revitalization of existing congregations. We're to work toward new ministry, new church starts, reconfigurations, anything that will bring about the ministry of Jesus Christ for new people in new places. I remember I was part of the very first National Plan for Hispanic Ministry training many years ago, back again in the days of Bishop Rader. And there was a lot of consternation, concern at that particular gathering of people in Kenosha. And one of the concerns was, well, how will we do new ministry? How will we reach out? Who's going to give us permission? Who should we ask if it's okay to be in ministry? And Bishop Rader was just really confused by all of this. Who said we need permission to go out into all the world? Isn't that our task? New ministry is one of the roles of us as superintendents, as mission strategists for our districts, and yet the passion needs to come from each of you to reach out. We're to be examples of spiritual leadership. We're to hold supervisory responsibility for our clergy that offers support, care, and counsel. We're to have regular contact with clergy, with congregations. We're to care for the overall ministry of the annual conference as we encourage people toward stewardship, mission awareness, giving. Now, I've only broached the surface of what our responsibilities are to be as district superintendents. Specifically, Dan already mentioned some of these, so I don't have to go through the whole list in depth again. But specifically, in order to help revitalize local congregations, partnering with you, there are many training programs that have been initiated. The Mission Consultation Church Initiative that Scott Carlson has helped to pilot within our conference has started to reap some incredible results, and we're just starting. We want that program to continue and grow. Kate Sue and Zucker have worked with Impact. Again, that's a similar program to MCCI, which is targeting smaller churches. How can we help you to grow in your vitality? We work for several years with the Institute of Congregational Development, and appreciative for Jorge Mayorga as he has helped to pilot that, both in English and in Spanish language. You saw some of the graduates yesterday. We are working to ensure that people in the local church, clergy and laity, have tools for revitalization, but also tools to reach out into the communities and the world. I'm excited that there are those 40% of our clergy about our cross-racial, cross-cultural, ethnic people that are a part of the ministry and leadership. And this means that it's a continuing challenge and joy to work towards some cross-cultural training within our congregations. I know Sam and Sue and others, that is part of all of our roles as district superintendents. I'm excited that in the last couple of years, we've had to get our district boards of locations and buildings together so that we could work with congregations that are building new churches and expanding and growing. I think we need to remember the joy that we have in ministry together, even as we are in the wilderness, working toward even a greater sense of justice, partnership, and joy together. Superintendents, in our spare time, we work with coaching and training staff parish relations committees. We have many other committees that we work with in the district level, the district strategy teams, district committees on ministries, superintendency committees, and more. We work continually toward the assessment of congregation ministry and vitality. There are many congregations that come to the point of saying, can we continue? Are we able to survive? And more than survival, we want strategic mission and a work toward vitality. Of course, there's the teaching and training that we do in our church conferences, and as we have a range of topics from hospitality to prayer to stewardship. Speaking of church conferences, since we went to the 5 districts, many of us have done all the church conferences in our districts during the year. Why is that important? Well, back to Bishop Rader's words, and by the way, Bishop Jung was on that same cabinet and received the same information. It's important for us to be present, to hear the concerns of the people. It's important for us to meet individually, one-on-one with clergy, so we can know you and know how best to support you. In my role as superintendent, I want every one of our clergy and our congregations to succeed, to grow, to be vital. Everyone, because we are superintendents of the whole church. We partner right now with Minnesota in working toward new ministry and way to have vitality on borderline areas with Minnesota, and we're working to engage in more conversations with Illinois so that we don't have to be territorial and competitive, but how can we cooperate in ministry together for the sake of Jesus Christ? Now, each superintendent could name ministries that they are working on within their local district. I'm just going to take a moment to talk about the Southeast District because I've been grateful for some of our representatives, our members of Annual Conference, clergy, to lift up the challenges, joys, and concerns that we have. Of course, the Southeast District has much complexity and diversity. We've been thrilled to welcome an African ministry, and actually worshiping in Swahili. And I've learned recently from them that there's 2 different types of Swahili, so I can't tell the difference myself. And they worship in other languages as well. And one of the joys is that Christ Way, which is one of our Hmong congregations, are the ones that welcome them in and have helped them partner and grow in ministry. We have good ministry and outreach happening within our churches right now. It's a great thing and a blessing. We have a Dai congregation. And not only Dai, but other people that are from Myanmar and are able to communicate in the Burmese language as well as the Dai language. And one of the people that will be licensed as a local pastor today is Tong Hong. And we're so grateful for Tong. That gives us one of the challenges that we have going forward in the diversity of, increasing diversity of our state. And that is, we have more diversity, and we're reaching out in more ways than can keep up with our Book of Discipline, Board of Higher Education, or any of us. In other words, Tong went to an English language licensing school when he is just now learning English. We had no other way. So when Bishop Jung talks about ways that bishops in the past and the church has worked in ways that are maybe contrary to the way the Book of Discipline is technically written, I think one of the joys of the Methodist movement, going back from Wesley, is practical Christianity. It is the good news of Jesus Christ, make disciples of all the world, that should be at the root and core of what we're doing. And sometimes we need to work within the system or around the system to make sure that happens. And that is just one other area in the multiplicity of languages that we have. Again, Christ Way churches, they're bursting at the seams. out of their building. And one of our challenges in the area is how do we find new space, larger space for ministries that are growing in an area of Milwaukee where our buildings are old and limited parking, not handicap accessible, and all of that. We have a couple other ministries that we've heard from this week, and just such a joy and growth. You've heard about Zao ministries that are exploding in the way they're able to reach the area of eastern Milwaukee with younger people, diverse people, and the radical inclusive hospitality is at the core of their identity. Urban Poema is a second and third generation Hispanic congregation that, again, is another one that's exploding, except it's not a Hispanic congregation. It is, but it isn't. They intentionally, from the outset, said, we want to be multicultural. And so they've existed in about 4 different locations and now are in a very diverse community where there is a diverse population.